Well, hello. Welcome to the Therapist Invitation. I'm Mark Mayfield.
I'm Trever Shirin. Sorry, I got really distracted. We have a TV up behind the camera.
He was
today.
looking at himself.
Yeah, and then I was like, I can't be looking at the TV. I got to look at the lens. Trever Shirin.
Well, I hope you all are doing well. It's been an interesting couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Just in our, we're now solidly into 2021.
Mm-hmm.
This will probably come out sometime in February, March.
Yeah.
But so what 2021 January has been like. It's like a repeat of 2020 with a bunch of different things, but it's just getting better.
Of chaos.
But I think looking at the positives and focusing
Totally.
on that, there's a one at the end of the year,
Yeah.
which is helpful. But so today's topic is something that I've been thinking about. It's more of a question. Like, do you remember what it was like to be like a junior in high school?
Mm-hmm.
And I know you and I are very much alike, that all of our friends were seniors because we just didn't deal with people in our own age group really well.
Yeah, I don't know if I was accepted very well by my
class.
class.
I wasn't either. Yeah,
I
was either liked by the freshmen or the seniors.
Yep.
Just sophomores thought I was an idiot, and juniors were just like,
Yep.
"What's wrong with you?" But do you remember what it was like to come to the end of your junior year and realize that all your friends were graduating and that you were still going to be stuck as a senior?
Yep.
I think the question I was thinking about is kind of like, how do we deal with friends in those seasons?
Yeah. Or
the loss
that
of friends.
transition.
Yeah.
Or because I remember, like, this is how deep this goes for me, because this is a real core thing in my life. I remember my aunt, who's my mom's younger sister.
Okay.
And, my mom was only 21 when she had me. So my aunt was, I don't know, teens, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so growing up until about the age of 5 or so, like, we did everything. Like, we'd go rollerblading around the neighborhood and go to the library, like all sorts of fun stuff. And I can remember distinctly the night before she got married. And I love my uncle. I think he's awesome. But I remember sobbing in my bed
As a
5-year-old because I was losing my aunt. And she was going to be with this other guy, like, instead of hanging out with me.
Right.
And then the same thing would happen every graduation, like every May in high school. These friends that I had made is like, they're going away. Like, our relationship is changing. I may never talk to them again. And if I do, it's going to be different. They're going to be in college. Like, it was a real, like, and it still hits me hard to this day. I've developed enough where it's not as distressing a situation, and I'm able to manage it a lot better. But that's still like sensitive.
But you recognize what it is.
Oh, yeah. I hate loss. Even if it's not really loss, it's just transition.
Right. No, and I agree. Like, I remember, so if you're listening, shout out to Adam Atchison, who is the news anchor at KKTV. But he and I were close friends in high school up in Fort Collins, and he was a senior. I was a junior. We're close to the same age, but he was a year ahead of me. Yeah. And I remember he was just going to go to CSU.
Okay.
But everything changed. We still saw each other and we still hung out and that kind of stuff. But you think about the mindset of, I'm a college student now. Am I going to go hang out with a high schooler? Even though there's 6 months age difference, even though there's, and I'm not saying he did that. And we hung out and we were still friends. And then we lost track. And then lo and behold, he shows up here in Colorado Springs.
He comes back, he leaves, comes back
as the news anchor. And just life still. I mean, we love seeing each other and talking, but we haven't rekindled that kind of friendship. Yeah. But that's okay. But it seems like that life is full of these things where roles change, positions change, status changes. And the friendship changes. And I think my question is, why do we hold on to those things when we know logically that this is just life? Yeah. Like life is made up of seasons.
There's a really beautiful quote by A.W. Tozer that I've switched a little bit because it flows better this way. Whatever.
Sorry, Tozer.
That can be, my own ego thing. But the phrase, the quote is, "We are immortal beings longing for permanency in a world that reminds us of change and death." And I love that because it feels so true to me as a person. It feels true to my spirit. And I think it speaks to what you're asking about, of like, we we long for those times. We miss those times. We think back fondly about them. We despise the loss and the change because it is a reminder of change and death to
Sure.
our being, which is immortal and longing for permanence.
Yes, I love that. And Tozer, I think, would be proud with,
Hopefully.
a good, did it justice there. Let's break that down a little bit more, because I think, thinking about, let's say, high school. Now I know I'm far. This is my 21st reunion this year.
I'm going to oddly date myself here,
Yeah.
because there's going to be a group that says, "Oh, you're old now," and a group that says, "Oh, you're so cute and young."
Yeah, yeah.
My 10-year anniversary, high school reunion is coming up this year.
So I'm at 21, and you're at 10.
Yep.
But that feels weird, doesn't it? I mean,
Mhm.
think about that. I'm 10 years removed from high school. I'm 21 years removed from high school. But I think the question I've been thinking about, and this is just, let's relate it to the high school, but this can be related to anything.
Mhm.
Was the friendship in high school due to positioning more so than relationship?
So there's this guy. I don't even remember his name because I don't think he's worthwhile to credit this towards. But he credits himself with the theory of proximity, that we are friends with people we are in proximity with.
Okay.
And so the reason it's funny to me is because, like, obviously you're friends with the people you're near physically.
That makes sense.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that just is how things work. And I don't think anybody really questions that. Like, it's kind of known. And that's a lot of what high school is proximity.
Yeah, we have to sit in class together, and your desk was next to mine, so I guess we're friends.
Or enemies, or somewhere in between.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So why, but like from a humanistic standpoint, why is it that way?
Mm.
So you think about jobs,
Mm-hmm.
you think about neighborhoods,
Mm-hmm.
We love our neighbors,
Mm-hmm.
but I can tell you right now that if we were to move,
Yeah.
they might get a Christmas card. We might get a Christmas card,
Mhm.
but the depth of that friendship
Mm.
may not stay the same. Is
Yeah.
that bad or good? I don't know. Like, but you think about, jobs,
Yeah.
you develop some close relationships in a workplace, and
Yeah.
people leave. Should it be the end of a friendship?
Hmm.
I mean, these are just questions.
No,
I don't know
those
if I have
are-
answers to these, but
Those are really
opinions.
thought-provoking questions. Because, I mean, you know me. I don't like absolutes.
that's
And
why I asked
so-
those questions in that way, just to see,
Yeah, I don't think there is an absolute. Like, does X mean Y
right.
in relationships particularly? But I think the phrase that keeps coming to mind as you were asking those questions is like, it doesn't have to.
But what makes it, I think, then what's the defining line? What keeps it from going the way it usually goes,
Mm-hmm.
like absolute there, but like it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a word that's in my mind, but I want to see what your thought is on that first.
I think it's commitment.
Yeah, I was going to say intentionality.
I like intentionality.
Yeah, but commitment and intentionality.
Yeah, because I'm even thinking like Peter Jordahl moved over a year ago to Washington, and he's now in Silverdale, and I really hope he comes back. But I remember when he left, making a commitment like, hey man, I'm not going to let this friendship
change or
subside.
die. Yeah.
If anything, I'm going to lean harder into it.
Mhm.
And I'm not good at long distance relationships. Like I just don't.
Right.
I mean, I don't do a good job of maintaining close proximity relationships, let alone if I don't see you. And so like, and our friendship has flourished over the past year and plus because of that intentionality and the commitment.
Yeah.
And there's other friends that like, it's kind of going back to our equity conversation almost of like, here's a little bit of commitment and intentionality. Oh, it's not returned. I really like you. I'm going to do another step. No, it wasn't returned. Okay, I'm going to try one more time. Okay, well, I'm going to keep the door open, but
it brings up a couple things. There's friendships that are reciprocal.
Mm-hmm.
What you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to step out. Oh, it's returned. Okay, I'm going to step out again. It's returned. Okay,
Yeah.
That dance. But then I think there's friendships of convenience.
Say more on that.
Well, I think about I can think of a number of friends in my life where I provided something for them, or they provided something for me. So I'm not putting it all on them. Like,
Sure.
that sounds egotistical.
All of our ego is going to come out.
Y'all come out today. But you think about it, like I'm getting something from them.
Yeah.
And and I'll be friends with them because of that. And then when that dries up, am I really friends again? So I think there's the friendship. And I think that we can take a step back. Is that manipulative?
Yeah. Is that wrong?
And I don't know.
Yeah.
I think when
it
can be. I think when relationships end and that's the only basis for the relationship.
Yeah.
I think that hurts.
Yeah.
But
and I remember too, as a young kid, a neighborhood friend and family friend who I wasn't super close with. Like we hung out, but I mostly hung out with like their siblings.
Right.
They had Halo 1.
Okay.
And I wanted to play it. And I really struggled with like, can I ask this person for like to borrow this game? Is that appropriate for our relationship? Is that like, and does it feel like I'm just using them as a friend? Like that was a lot of my thinking is like, I was probably 10 maybe. I don't know. I wasn't very old. But I remember really processing through like, can I ask them? Do I need to like hang out with them a few times before I ask to borrow the game?
Right.
Because we haven't hung out very much. And I think that that was beneficial for my development because I really learned like, the ideal of if you can accept no as an answer, ask every question.
Right.
And also recognizing some of that tendency that I might have towards manipulating a relationship to get something. And how can I be mindful? Like, am I actually investing in this relationship or is there something that I want out of this relationship?
But I don't think people are that self-aware. And that's where when I say I balked a little bit when I said relationships of convenience, because I don't think very few people go into a relationship going, what can I get from that person? But I wonder what creates that kind of mindset. Because I really do believe that people are not innately vindictive or, so if I entered that relationship and I'm expecting something from them, that maybe comes because of something I see, something I need, but to go in there and go, I'm just going to manipulate this for that thing. I don't really think that that's the case for a lot of people.
Right. But I think that would be more definitive of another issue.
Sure. But so my question though is, what needs to happen? This is a 2-part question. Like what needs to happen for that type of self-awareness to be there, or what has happened for that self-awareness to be gone? You know what I mean? Like, I'm
going to keep bringing it back to childhood.
Yeah.
So, but not mine in this one. More of like a broad, like, do we teach a child to act poorly?
No, that's just nature.
Yeah.
I mean, just the selfishness of we call it infantile narcissism. Like, I mean, that's just,
So do we teach someone to not have self-awareness? That gets a little bit more complicated.
True.
But in a broad sense, probably not.
Well, no. And you think about the tendency for parents. So if parents are not taught or trained, the tendency is my kid is upset. How do I keep them from being upset? And that creates some ego state that is not good. And so you think, okay, if that's the case and this kid has never been challenged in grit or resiliency or those kind of things that we talk about all the time.
Yeah.
Then do they develop this ego state of survival? And so relationships are built on convenience. And when that convenience is done, they move on. I can't tell you how many people I've known in my life that it just felt like, oh, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done with you. You've given me everything I needed.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I'm moving on. And I'm like, whoa, what the heck? Yeah. Like, I was more invested than that, you know, but
well, and to throw another wrench into this conversation.
Please, I love it.
Gosh, this gets a little bit personal. I'm going to try to push it away from me a little bit. There's the other side of that too, where there are some individuals that set up such high or really do a lot of gatekeeping on their relationships. is what it is. Of yeah, I'm gonna really take my time to figure out if I let you in at all.
Yeah.
Like I have one individual that I'm not very close friends with, but I met him, and one of his friends essentially said something along the lines of like he gatekeeps his friendships, like he's not going to be friends with you unless he chooses to.
Mm.
And for me, that was like, oh well, this is now a badge of honor that I must pursue. And like it helped that I genuinely liked the guy. But it was interesting for me even to see like, oh, this is a really easy way to keep people from using you, hurting you. And it's essentially a boundary that can lean towards unhealth very easily.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about leaders that I've met that are very guarded.
Yeah.
know,
There's one that comes to my mind that I'm sure you're thinking of.
But part of it makes sense.
Yeah. That's why I say it leans towards unhealth.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think if that's the opposite, and the other one, if we think about like the codependency teeter-totter of narcissism, codependency, takers versus givers.
Right.
I think that, finding that balance, sometimes it's easier to know something by its opposite.
Mm.
And so if it's the gatekeepers that are the opposite of the relationships of convenience, I think it may speak to those boundaries personally, that if I'm investing in relationships of convenience, it may speak to the boundaries that I have of my own personhood, of my relationships, what I define as a friendship.
Yeah.
And as also like how I care for other people. Like, are they somebody I'm using, or are they somebody that I'm investing into and getting a return that I enjoy?
The word investing, I think, is a really good word.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, let's think about our friendship.
Yeah.
Initially was me investing.
Mm-hmm.
Because you asked.
Very hard investing into me. Yeah.
And that I knew what I was getting into.
Yeah.
I wanted to. I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't take long for that to be reciprocal.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 6 months, 8 months. I mean, it wasn't like I was investing and no return. Like it was like, but I think that speaks a whole nother conversation about marriages.
Mm.
Right? I mean, how many times have you worked with a couple and they're like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing this and there's nothing being returned?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, but think about their hurts. Think about their woundedness. Think about the reason you're here.
Yeah.
Like, you had an affair.
Right.
Like, early on, you were young, you were stupid, whatever. And now you want it to all be, well, so how long is it going to take for you to invest before that's reciprocated? Well, there's no formula. Right?
For relationships in general.
Yeah, so there's no formula. But I think, again, so I'm not going to go down that path of marriage relationships, because I think that's a whole nother conversation we can talk about. So let's just put a pin in that. But I think each of us need to have kind of a framework in our minds of going, how much am I willing to invest in this person
Mm-hmm.
without an ROI, return on investment?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we can scaffold that in some ways to go, okay, these group of people, I know I'm going to invest X amount because I know that either it's not the capability of return, or that's not the purpose.
Mm-hmm. As you're talking, I'm even thinking about the opposite. There have been 2 situations in my life where there was an individual who was investing and like spending money,
Right?
Like we would go to concerts and we would like do things together.
Sure.
And there was this sense of like guilt, like I had to be their friend because they kept spending money on me, and because they had spent money on me, I needed to maintain the relationship.
Right.
And as I maintained the relationship, they would spend more money on me.
Just got unhealthy.
And it really spiraled into unhealth, and it was uncomfortable. And, at that point, I didn't have the skills or tools to be able to say anything and do anything. I just didn't know what to do. I kind of stayed in it until somebody else stepped in and helped me out. So I think, there's also that end of the friendships of convenience where, you can use your power or your ability, whatever, to create friendships of convenience or of, you invest so much that you're wanting reciprocity and guilting them into reciprocity, which is interesting as well.
It is. And I just thinking about, as both of us are kind of coming out of a year of burnout,
Mm-hmm.
not a lot of margin,
Mm-hmm.
into a new year
Mm-hmm.
where I think there's margin building,
Mm-hmm.
like significantly.
Mm-hmm.
I think it just comes back to the conversation of answering the question of who am I,
Mm-hmm.
and am I okay with that,
Mm.
and am I drawing from those strengths
Mhm.
and not needing
Mm.
somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where this is we talk about, and we'll talk more about this, through the Mayfield Collective, of just boundaries.
Yeah.
But I think that there's those rhythms of how am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
Like, not in some, maybe in some ways, a little bit of an egotistical way. Like, I'm pretty good.
Yeah.
I like myself.
Yeah.
And
I don't think Freud would say it's egotistical.
yeah,
But
I think there's some health to that going. So if I'm feeling okay and I'm okay with who I am, then I don't need you
mm-hmm.
to fill anything in me.
Yeah.
But I want to learn from you. I
Yeah.
want to grow from you. And then there enters that risk of entering into a relationship that may or may not be reciprocal. Yeah. And then if we're okay with ourselves, we know then, okay, I'm going to go a certain amount. And if it's not returned, then that's okay. Yeah. Because I'm not going to be hurt by that, because I'm okay with who I am. And again, we have offshoots of a whole bunch of different conversations here. But I think, because I think the listeners on this episode are probably going, okay, this is great, and I can track with that, but it's really existential. Like, what do we do with it? What do we do with it?
Well, and I think I'm coming to the point where the phrase of reciprocity and equity are non-transactional.
Speak to that more, because you probably went over some people's heads there.
Probably. So we've talked about reciprocity a lot today.
Right. And reciprocity, again, is just the give and take of a relationship that's mutually beneficial. Yep.
And we talked about equity a few episodes ago.
Right. So go back and listen to that if you need a refresher.
And I think today we've touched on some transactional aspects of relationship.
Transactional meaning what?
Meaning that it's I give and you give back. I give you something and you give me something in return.
I put my card into the ATM machine and I punch in some numbers and cash pops out.
Right.
That's a transaction.
There's, and that is formulaic.
It is.
Even if it's wrong, I can go to eBay and I can make a transaction for something that's, marked 10 times its price, but it's still a transaction.
But the transaction has to be equitable and reciprocal.
Well, I would say.
Or you say no.
That reciprocity and equity in relationships is non-transactional, because whenever we fall into transaction,
I like that. Then it's a quid pro quo.
Yeah, it becomes, well, I bought coffee for Mark last week. This is rarely ever happened. Let me switch it so it's more accurate. Mark bought me coffee last week and several times before that too. So I now have to buy him coffee.
Right. But me going into buying you coffee, there was no thought that Trevor better,
right.
So okay, that makes sense. Yeah, reciprocity and equity are non-transactional.
And the reciprocity equity would say, hey, Trevor, I would really appreciate it if you would get me coffee next Wednesday. That would mean a lot to me. And then based out of our relationship,
right? If
it's reciprocal. My response would most likely be oh yeah, awesome. What kind of coffee? How do you want to do this? Not in a let me tab up the numbers and see if you deserve to have a coffee from me.
Right.
Which I think is the transactional nature, which I think is a foundational part of relationships of convenience.
I like that. I mean, it makes me want to take stock of some things. Actually, I have been taking stock of some things. And I don't know where I can probably guess where you are in this one. I, most of my life, have been a trust first person.
I think you can guess where I am on that one.
I totally guess where you are on that one. Not that way. But I'm really beginning to realize that it shouldn't be an either or.
Yeah.
And I'm realizing, I'm going to be 40 this year. Mm-hmm. It's okay to trust first in some situations.
Yeah.
And it's okay not to in others. And so I think as listeners, just take stock of your relationships. Think about the reciprocity of your relationships. Think about the equity of your relationships. Are they quid pro quo and transactional? I do this and I'm expecting this in return. Yeah. that can be exhausting.
Yeah.
And if you need somebody to talk to, give us a call. We've got, especially if you're in Colorado, we've got teletherapists available that can help you out. But then also be looking for Mayfield Collective, because there's going to be a lot of fantastic resources on these conversations.